So I think it was, last week I really had you flipping through the Bible. We're not going to do that this week. I'll go easy on you. A lot of scripture last week, tied a lot in, made the case biblically for end times and latter days. Today, John 4 and Matthew 15. We just have a couple markers there. John 4 and Matthew 15. Matthew 15, John 4. Just simple thought today for a sermon. What is worship? I suppose I've kind of been on this thing for the last few Sundays anyways. They kind of, I guess I see when I'm preparing how one sermon flows to the next, that we might end up at a totally different subject or what might be a series 4 weeks later, but I can see how really 1 week transitions to the next. And so I don't want you to think I'm repeating myself too much, just because even today's sermon, 2 weeks ago was contentment, and then it was latter times kind of, and how the world is right now. Last week is what we talked about, and the reality of the situation as it pertains to our morals, or to the situation as it is today. That was what we talked about last week. Had a lot of scripture, so we did contentment, and which is covetousness, and even idolatry. And then last week was somewhat latter days, which kind of tied into that. And today I'm talking what is worship then, and if this isn't worship and this isn't how we are, then what is worship? So a lot of the things I talk about today overlaps and seems repetitive from the last 2 weeks, but I just see the flow, and we just kind of keep going wherever the Lord leads in these sermons. And today, though some of it might be repetitive from prior sermons years ago or even 2 weeks ago, we just kind of keep going forward and recapping and adding to. What is worship? So, as a continuation of it, I want to offer a perspective on worship today, and I think this perspective will be unique on how you currently view it. Not completely different, just maybe add to it an additional, an advancement of your view, and certainly probably unique on how most people view it. I want to make you think about it. I like people thinking about things. I want to change the way even you view worship, or at the very least, add to it and enhance it, and see if what you think about it is fair and is right. And there's a couple basics, which I'm not going to oppose. John 4:23, if you're there, John 4:23. But the hour comes, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeks such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. That's an excellent passage to go to and think about worship. We'll ultimately get to that idea. Matthew 15, verses 8 and 9 are good too. This people draw nigh unto me with their mouth, honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. But in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. And so there's a tremendous amount of doctrine you can get out of that worship is of the heart. So we have worship is of the heart, not what you say. So people can get together and they can say they worship, but it might not be true. You could say you're here today for the Lord, but you might be here because you are here for me. You could be here for me. You know, my family might not want to be here, but they want to support me. You know, they would be here for me. That wouldn't be the right reason to be here. I tell you, in a lot of churches, and I don't see it in our church particularly, not saying it hasn't been or won't be, a boy could come because there's a girl. They're not coming for the Lord. They're looking to get hitched, you know. And we say that a lot about Bible schools. If you want to get real, you know, you have the Christians that are just really putting on a show and they're really into it. And that's how they identify themselves, not by Christ, but by their Christianity. What do? You send your children into a Bible school. And lots of churches, they have a particular Bible school. Some churches they keep sending them to Moody. Some people keep sending them to Cedarville. Some people, they're Maranatha. It's just like these churches are like recruit centers for one particular university. Oh, you got to, you know, the Charismatics, Oral Roberts. In our church isn't that way, but if we were, it'd be like, you know what, you boys, girls, you really need to consider now going to North Glen Baptist Bible College or Ankeny, here in Iowa, James Baptist Bible College. You're really being doing the Lord. You get down there and they'll help you figure out what you really need to be. And we don't do that. There's a lot. And you know what? The people who want to be real about it, we don't call them Bible schools. We call them bridal schools. You know, because what they really mean, let's just be fair, is that, hey, you want to find somebody of like mind, get down there, and all the Iowa Christians can get down there and get in a big group, and you'll find somebody that we approve of you marrying. And that's the reality of it. And I don't know that that's the way it's meant to be, but we can be real about it. And what my point with that is that they're not really going for the right reasons. It's lip service. The reasons. So it's really, what is your heart? You know, and there's a lot of people that go to church today and they're not going for God. They're not going for Christ. There's some ulterior motive that they are going. You know, there's a lot of children getting drugged there by their parents. There's a lot of people that they go because there's something in it for them. Money, maybe. I mean, I learned a long time ago, just don't even start giving people money to entice them to come to church. Because why they're coming is, why they start coming is when they're going to stay coming. And it never should be about money. I can't help it if you've got your eyes on some other person here, whether it be me, or whether it be somebody of the opposite sex, or whether it be somebody you want to be employed by, or somebody you want to employ, or some ulterior motive that you have that is not God or Christ. I can't always help that, but I can't help it that I'm not going to bribe you to come with money. The point is, you ought to be at church for the right reasons. And you will say, I'm here for God. But I don't care what you say. It's not lip service. That's Jesus' point. What you say, most of the time, doesn't matter. It's what is truly in your heart. Really, what is in your heart? And, you know, it says, this people, in verse 8, these people draw nigh unto me with their mouth. And they say all the right things. You know, we call that Christianese. And there's a lot of people that speak real fluent Christianese. Say all the right things. And they honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. In vain they do. So a lot of worship is in vain. And I tell you, there's a lot of vain worship that goes up, especially out of America anymore. And we really shouldn't be that way. So great foundation there. You know, that's what most pastors would probably just stick around in there. But I like to think about it. I like to challenge what you think about it. And I like to be real so that one of these days you're going to start wondering. One of these days, even if you don't start wondering, you're going to come across somebody that's going to wonder about stuff. And they're going to challenge your perspectives on why you believe what you believe. Videos on these people, and they go both ways. It's like, who are you voting for? Well, Donald Trump. Why? Well, who you vote for? Joe Biden. Why? Well, because Donald Trump's orange. And you know, they cannot even defend And there's a lot of people that cannot defend what they believe politically. There's that many more people that can defend their own beliefs spiritually. You ought to be able to do that. Because there's people out there that don't believe in Christ, that don't believe in God, that one of these days the Holy Spirit might be working on them, and you might be in their way, and they might come to you and say, well, why do you think that Jesus is the only way to heaven? And you need to have some verifiable answer for them. Because they're not just going to accept indoctrination. Some people do, and it works for them. I just don't think you have to just expect people to be indoctrinated to the Bible. I think it's real. I saw one interview with a guy this week, and well thought out fella. He said, well, why are you a Christian? He said, well, I was an atheist. I hated Christ. I hated God. And some things happened in my life, and I got to the point that I thought, I'm going to look into religions. And I looked into every religion, and every single religion respected Jesus Christ and said that he was even the Buddhists said that he was a Buddha. And every religion I had, Muslims, every religion that I went to, Mormons, they all respected this Jesus Christ fellow. History respects Jesus Christ. The Jews respect Jesus Christ. Everybody respects Jesus Christ. So I went and I looked at Jesus, and everybody said he is a way to heaven. I thought, well, wow, every religion says he's a way. Then I went to Jesus Christ. I went to the Bible, and Jesus, what he said is, I am the way. So I figured if all religion, this is what this guy said, if all religions say he's a way, but he says he's the only way, I figured there's got to be something to it. So I continued looking, and you know what? That's what I found. That's what this guy said. At least he had some reason to believe what he believed. A lot of Christians don't have any reason to believe what they believe. And I want you to know what you believe. Why are you worshiping? What are you doing? What is worship? I just think about that. So first, you worship in spirit and truth. The noise we made matters not. And a lot of churches define, I heard one guy say, you ought to come to our church, music is second to none. And he was talking about, they have a band on stage to play. And that's what they define, just how good actually their music is, as if it's a concert. I pray once in a while that when we open, that if God looked out on all the churches in Tama or Iowa, and that if somehow you could see the worship going up, like we see smoke rising up, it's going to be getting fall time, and it's a romantic, nostalgic time, and there'll be some calm morning, and not so much now, but it used to be on those calm mornings, you'd see people starting their wood stoves, and you'd see across the countryside these wafts of plumes of the first smoke of the year coming out, and you smell that smoke, and it's kind of that romantic fall, cheery thing, warm fuzzies, you see that smoke rising across the countryside from all these little homes starting their fires first time of the year, And I just think, what if Jesus looks out across when we're worshiping and he can see that? It's not smoke that we can see, but he sees and he smells across the land these flames of worship and the smoke going up, right and carrying into heaven. I just wonder what he sees now. And I don't know if anybody's actually putting off some real good stuff. I tell you, there's good smoke and there's bad smoke. I don't mind the smell of a nice oak fire. Tires burning, not so much, And all summer, I thought the Canadian wildfire smoke smelled a lot like rubber instead of pine. Now that always made me wonder, because I can smell smoke. And there's some fire smells good and some don't. I don't know how much brisket I would want to eat if it was smoked over tire. But now hickory, boy, And what kind of smoke are we sending up to heaven? This invisible smoke of worship. And there's a lot of churches that it's not good. Because they get in there and it matters what sounds up here. And it matters not what they think. Well, if you recorded us and played us back, we'd be kind of cringy. We're not the best singers. I'm not the best singer. We listen to music on a computer, played over a squeaking sound system. But that's not what God hears. Are your hearts right? It's worship. A pleasant aroma unto God is what I hope that we send up. And that God can look out across the land. And I hope we look like a bonfire going up. You know? There might be a lot of churches, it looks like they over there with a cigarette smoke. I want to be like a forest fire. True worship of the heart, not lip service, not how we sound, not even how it makes you feel. I don't care how you feel. It's how God feels when you get done worshiping. We are here to worship God, not you. You are here to worship God, not yourself. I am here to worship God, not you. You're here to worship God, not me. There's a lot of churches that don't have that right. And quite frankly, I wish they just would cease to exist, because they're the churches that get attention, and then the world sees them churches, and the world looks right through it and says, fake. You know what? And I'm standing over here with the world looking, I'm thinking too, yep, fake. But worship in spirit and truth. Second, it can be vain. It can just be lip service. So that's pretty well understood concept of worship. What I said there should just be repetition to most of you, or a reminder of something. I think we have a decent understanding of worship today, but I think we can come to it the wrong way. We come to that understanding that I just said, we come to it the wrong way. And by that I mean sometimes the process of getting to a point is more important than being there. And this isn't always how it is, but I've seen it from time to time. That you'll have something of value, like a business, or maybe a car, or a project, or something of some value. Let's just say a business. And so let's say it's a business that was built from the ground up. And you have this successful businessman, and he might then give that business to his heir, and now the heir has a successful business. So you had this guy with a successful business, and this guy had a successful business. They both have successful business here. But when the founder had it, he built it from nothing. He put his heart and his soul into it. He understood it. He knew it. You say what you will about Henry Ford, but he knew automobiles. He knew them inside and out. He knew it. And then you have these other people, and you see it in society, you see people get businesses, they take a place, and they come into the same amount of leadership or authority or ownership, but they don't know it like this guy did. He knows it. You see it with farms. I've seen farms where the guy built it up from nothing. And then the son goes off to college, and the son goes off to a career, and all of a sudden the son comes back into it, and he's giving it over to him. You think that son has a value on it when it's just given to him? As a son who, if he built it up alongside his dad, or as the dad did when he built it from nothing, just to come in and it's built and it's just heaped over, and he still owns it all, but he doesn't have that understanding. He doesn't have that gratitude. He doesn't have the value, because it's just given to him. He did nothing to build it and cultivate it. He did nothing to learn it and to know it. I don't think the value is there. Today, Christians, they have worship, but they don't have the same worship and the same understanding and the same value of, like say, the Pilgrims did. We have worship, and we have worship services, but we had it given to us. You were told what worship is. You never learned what worship is. You were taught what worship is. You were given worship. You were given religious freedom. You were given this. You never sacrificed nothing to have this. You never endured hardship to have this. You don't understand what the originator understood about this. The value is not there. We've come to an end where our understanding is proper about worship. Your definition of worship is true. I have no doubt that you all understand what worship is. But how did you get to that point? You don't understand it. You know, but you don't understand. There's a couple different ways you can look at that. First, you look at it on the civil level. We can say we have religious freedom in this country, right? But no one appreciates it like those Pilgrims did when they got on their boats for 2 months and ate maggoty bread across an ocean. I won't even go on a cruise right now. And those pilgrims get on this wooden boat. I won't leave home without my cell phone to go a mile down the road. And they're out in the middle of the ocean. Nobody's coming to help them. They're calling nobody. And they're all in the middle of an ocean for 2 months trying to get over here so that they can worship God. There's people that won't drive 2 miles down the road to worship God today, and they're 2 months across an ocean that I don't even care if I see the ocean. Some people are like, I just want to see the ocean before I die. I don't care if I see the ocean, ever. I have no desire. I'm certainly not going to get on a boat and go out in the ocean. I barely get on a boat to go fishing on my own pond. I'm happy just on the shore, getting what I can get. And these people are out in the middle of the ocean. I don't know a lot about the ocean, but I know it's a vicious place. And I plan my entire week around now on a 15-day forecast. And we need to go ahead and get this stuff done because moisture's coming. That's what we say. For all they know, they was heading right out into a hurricane. They don't have forecasts. They don't have radar. And these people said, you know what? We are going to die. Some of us are going to die. But you know what? It's worth it. That's what now the pilgrims understood worship. And so now our rights as Americans are given to us. None of y'all have fought and died to any extent. Even the people, God bless them, our soldiers, they don't understand true agony, even as one generation ago. The vile, terrible stuff that they went through to keep us free. We've started to lose that. Some of the older generations start to understand it. But we're removed from some world wars. And people have lost the ugliness of war in their heart. They don't understand it. People have lost the ugliness of fleeing religious dictatorship to get here and have religious liberty. We've lost that. It's just been given to us. So our rights as Americans, by and far, for the most part, have been earned and just given to us, and we've lost an understanding and the value that it once held. None of y'all, none of us, nobody values our religious freedom like the Pilgrims did. Because they were drugged into church in England and told that they had to give and do a certain way. And they said, I'm tired of it. This is not right. I will die on the ocean to get to a free place to worship. The other way you can look at it, the second level you can look at that we have lost the understanding of what worship is what worship really is. If I were to ask people today, write on a piece of paper, just what is worship? You should just think to yourself, keep it to yourself. What is worship? Give me a definition of worship. You might say something like praise, or singing, or service. Not just having a worship service, but actually serving. That's what some people would say. That's worship, service. Submission would be a good word. Obedience. That's something you might hear from a mature Christian that might actually understand worship a little bit deeper than others. Obedience. That would be great. That's a more of a mature concept. Trust. Sacrifice. Sacrifice is somewhat synonymous with worship. All good words. All correct. All things that you have been indoctrinated with and taught and learned. Like by maybe doing, but learned. You don't understand that like you should. You inherited that because that technically correct understanding of worship was handed down to you from other people, where you just went to a church and learned it, and probably learned it from people who had it handed to them. And what do I mean by that? Go back to the thought about pilgrims. They died to get away from a state that was forcing them to worship in the wrong way. They suffered. They died. They lost their loved ones. I don't know if it would have been worse to die or lose loved ones. They confined themselves to a boat to cross an ocean just to get a place that they could worship freely. That's after they got out of jail in Holland and stuck onto the boat to get here. I mean, this was their second attempt to get religious freedom, not their first. They had done failed miserably once, and they did it again. They really wanted this religious freedom just so they could worship freely. So ask ourselves again, what is worship? And I put to you this thought. Worship, on the very basic level, is defined as assessing the worth of. You are assessing the worth of. To the pilgrims, they felt like it was worth it. They had to ask themselves, should we go to Holland? We're going to probably get put in jail there too and have everything stripped with. Yeah, it's worth it, they said. They said, boy, we've got this opportunity to sail to a new world. We're going to die. It's going to take our entire life savings. We want to see our loved ones die. We're going to be eating maggoty, stale, moldy bread and basically chunks of salt seasoned with some pork fat for the next 2.5, 3 months. We're going to get there at winter, maybe go through some hurricanes, and yeah, it's worth it. It was worth it to them. You know what worship is? It is literally worth-ship. Worth-ship. What does that mean? Well, you have friendship, you have relationship, you have championship, you have partnership. Ship is a suffix. I shouldn't have to tell everybody this, but with our public language arts courses anymore, you have prefixes and suffixes, right? Prefixes are little root words at the beginning that changes the meaning of the word. Like pre literally means before. Post means after. You put that in front of a word, you can change the meaning of the word. Prefix, you can put something at the end of a word is a suffix. Ship is a suffix. What does ship mean? It means it's talking about the position held. So if I have a friendship with you. You hold a position as a friend to me. I have a partnership with you. You hold the position as a partner. We have the championship. You hold the position as champion. Worthship. What position does this in value hold to you? What worthship is it? You've been told that worship means praising God. Now that might be a sufficient definition nowadays, but how did we get there? In one sense, completely right. In the other sense, completely wrong. Because worship means worthship. Worthship. So let's start with that. Let's evaluate in our own lives the worthship of self. If you're dating someone and you say you're in a relationship with them, every once in a while, especially the women, let's evaluate our relationship. Well, I want you to evaluate today your worthship. The position that stuff holds in your life as it pertains to their worth. What you value is what you worthship. That's literal definition here. You have entomology and entomology. One's the study of insects, the other's the study of words. So I don't know if we're going to be entomologing or etymology, but that is what a word literally means. Worthship is worship. So the question is, what is it that you ascribe value to in your life? That is what you worship. The pilgrims felt that God was worth fleeing. England and the Dutch, fleeing and coming to America for, even though they knew it would require of them tremendous sacrifice, all their money, all their reputation, jail possibly, prison, life, actual lives. They ascribed God so much worth that they were willing to die. They did it. It was worth it. Today there's a lot of people who then got to get out of bed to come to church. Why? It's not worth it. It's not worth it. They can't get up at a reasonable time to go to church because it's just not worth it. And they might literally, with their church, it might not be worth it. I don't know. What they really are saying, sleep. Because to be fair to churches, they could at least find a church that it would be worth. And then if they sleep in, then they're going to say, well, sleep worth more than God. And that's what a lot of people say today. Sleep worth more than God. Well, I stayed out late last night. Okay, so then staying out late last night worth more than God. Well, yeah, I want to undo this. Or it was prom last night, and prom worth more than God. Whatever it is that kept you from, that's what's worth more than God. Because you're assessing value. Their worship of other things is higher than their worship of God. You understand that? Their worship, that means what they value. Their worship of other things is higher than their worship of God. So what does that mean? Their worship of other things is higher than their worship of God. You could say we are here to assess what God is worth to us. You could say that. I guess that's a fair thing to say. Then you could say being here today assesses what God is worth to you, or wherever else you're here. Maybe these youngins are here because I drug them here by their ears. So their ears might be worth more than to them than if that's why they're here. Wherever you're here, that's worth more than something else. If you're here for God, being here means that your value on God is higher than whatever else you could be doing. Being fair, going to church isn't always an act of worship. We equate church and worship, church attendance and worship, and why do we equate the two? Why is the word worship synonymous with God? Because, you ought to think about that. Why do we say worship when we just automatically think God or gods? But because you look at a person's life, the way it's supposed to work, and a person's supposed to look, and if they were to value and rank things in their life by worth, so it would be the worthship of stuff in their life, God ought to be at the highest. And it used to be that way, by and far. Most people would rank God at number one. And so it became that it was just a no-brainer. God's number one. All throughout history, most of the time, God was number one. So God was always number one. He just became synonymous with worship. Because God should be, and used to be, number one all the time. It's just synonymous. He just became that which is worshipped. That which is worth the most in a person's life. I don't know if we can say that anymore. But if God is number one in a person's life, and actually today most people would say, yeah, God first, then family. Most people would say that. But their lives betray them. Their hearts betray them. Because their actions speak louder than their words. And their actions do not say that God is worth the most. Their actions do not say that family is worth the second most. If God is number one in people's lives, then their lives will look like the God is number one. They won't be able to hide it. They will desperately find ways. They cannot help but find ways to glorify God. That is worship. Because God is worth so much that they cannot help but their lives look like it. Your actions will betray your heart. Lots of times going to church or not going to church really tells you what is your heart really values. Or what church you go to. I've been clear multiple occasions. On the record, very clearly, all churches are not the same. Many churches get together and sing in a way that becomes personal worship instead of God worship. Meaning the value is placed on the individuals, not the Lord. And there's a lot of churches today that are very content if their people leave feeling good. I'm not content if you leave feeling good. How you leave feeling is not of, I care not. What I care about is how God feels when you leave. How do you leave God feeling today? Does God feel worshipped today? Does God feel content with this service today? Does God feel like He has a place in your heart today? Did the Holy Spirit get to work in you today? That's what matters. God, not you. There's a lot of churches that they don't think that way. They want you to be pleased so that you drop some money in the offering plate and so that you will come back next week. As tempting as that would be, for me to desire to see the church succeed that way, I can't care that way. I don't care. I have to resist the temptation to care. Because my job and your job is to care about how God feels. And the world is right to call a bunch of churches hypocritical. Because there's not enough people like me calling churches hypocritical when they act that way. But they are. What do you worship? What do you ascribe worth to? What church do you go to? All churches are not the same. Many churches get together and sing in a way that becomes personal worship instead of God worship, meaning they place the value on the individuals. Yet God is not valued. Their experience is. Yesterday, 70,000 people got together and ascribed value to something. Worship, I guess you could say. If they ascribe value, they're worshiping. But 70,000 people got together. And many of them drove hours. Many of them paid the gas to drive hours. Some people say, I don't have gas money. Yeah, I know there was people that drove 3 or 4 hours and gathered together with 69,999 other people to ascribe value to a certain thing. They sat there for 3 hours and worshiped because they valued it so much. Planned their whole day around it. And it shows their heart betrayed what they valued because they did that out of value. Down there at a Hawkeye game. I know I pick on football so much, but you know, it really is what people value. And I just got done making a pretty clear case that that which you value is that which you ascribe worth to. So ascribing worth, the worship of, is the worship of. And there's, by definition, people are down there worshiping the Hawkeyes. Because that's what they put value in. You know how much money it takes to go to a Hawkeye game? I mean, gas would take a lot. But tickets, food, time, I value my time. You know, I'm worth at least $5 an hour. So if it takes me 4 hours to go down there, that's $20 I can add to the appraisal of time. So you got to count your time for worth something. And if it takes me 4 hours to do something, that's $20 that I ought to be able to value that effort. And there's people down there that they describe themselves worth $150 an hour. And if they're spending 8 hours going to a Hawkeye game, that's how much they ought to ascribe to that. They do it here. If they gave that time here to this church to do something, they count that and says, yeah, I gave 8 hours to rewire the sound system for you. I did that. I'm doing that for free, but I'm just, take that out to my offering. Can I get a tax receipt for that? Or, I need to value my time at something, Pastor. I'm sure you understand, so just go ahead and sign this. Let me have it, give it to Uncle Sam. And if you do that, that's fine. You ought to do that. I'm just saying that they'll do it to me, but do they do it for the Hawkeye game? Do they value that they just gave to the Hawkeyes $1,500? They do it to me and do it to the church and take that deduction off. It's what you value in your life. Is that what you ascribe worth to? That is what, by definition, you worship. Worship. You're here today, and some of y'all never miss. Perfect attendance. Bad music and all, bad audio and all, bad building, whatever. You're here. Perfect attendance. A year of it or whatever. That tells you, I'm not going to say that tells me what you value. No, it don't matter what I think you value. It don't matter what I know you value. But I'm going to say that tells you what you value. That you've put in. That's a good thing. You can consider that. Been here, never missed a Sunday. It tells you what you value. That's a good thing. There's some people, and we've had them, even here in this church in the past, they might only come one Sunday out of 8, but when they're here, they're just, woohoo! Gung-ho, just flamboyant and charismatic. You just only see them once out of every 8 Sundays. I tell you, I don't have a respect for that near as much as I just have for the person 10 years of perfect attendance or whatever. Not that it matters to me, but I will say, I bring that up to say that then you can tell what you value. I hope you're not doing it for me or the church or somebody else. You're doing it for God. Because your worthship is what you place value in. And what do you place value in? That's your worship. That's your worship. So when you come to it then, back to John 4:23 and Matthew 15:8 and 9, and we start talking about worship and the worship of God, and having considered everything I've said about the real value that you place, and in your heart betraying your lips as to what you really place value in. I hope you can appreciate these verses a little bit when it talks about worshiping God. Matthew 15:8 and 9. People draw nigh. And by the way, if you got offended at me calling people hypocrites and religious people hypocrites and churches hypocrites, let's just start at verse 7. When Jesus called people hypocrites. You hypocrites! What did Isaiah prophesy to you, saying? These people draw nigh unto me with their mouth, and honor unto me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain do they worship me. Meaning a no smoke worship. Churches with no smoke going up this morning. Vain. Zero. Vain means zero. Worthless. Zero. Worthless. Zero worth. If you have a worship, worth nothing. Is it worship? Vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. Zero worth in their worship. What is your worship? And maybe it's not God. Be real with yourself. At least don't be a hypocrite. You say, yeah, I've come to realize I really just don't value God. Stop lying to me. Stop lying to yourself. Stop lying to everybody else. That'd be the first step to actually placing some value on God. What does John 4:23 say? But the hour comes, and now is, when true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeks such to worship Him. Now, after I said everything I said, I hope you can look at that verse in a little bit of a different light today. That it's not just actions, it's not just words, it's not just thoughts, it's not just songs. That when you read that, and it says the hour comes, and now is, when true worshipers shall worship. That means place a value on God. In spirit and in truth. Real, genuine value in God and in Jesus Christ. And it's no wonder people don't get saved, because we fail to value the work that was done on the cross. Live a life that people, people, they might not agree with what I believe, but they can still respect it, and they still at least know I believe it. Because my life reeks of valuing God, of worshiping God. When I die, I tell you, when I die, when you get saved, you're saying you die to the flesh, right? That sinful nature, you die to the flesh and you're born again, you're saved. You put your faith in Jesus Christ. You trust Him to forgive you of your sins, to make you right, to make you clean so that you can get into heaven, right? You die to the flesh. When I died to the flesh, heaven rejoiced. I tell you, when I die in the flesh, hell will rejoice. You don't know why? Because I'm such a foe against Satan. I love God so much. I am working for the Lord so much that heaven's going to be, hell is going to be pretty happy when I'm out of the picture. You know, when you're fighting a team and somebody on their team gets injured, oh, feel bad, but really you're happy because their best player is now benched. Well, hell is going to be pretty happy when the good players are out of here. And I want hell to be rejoicing when I die, that I'm out of their way. That as long as I live, I'm going to be in hell's way. So when I died in the flesh, when I died to the flesh, heaven rejoiced. But when I die in the flesh, hell rejoiced. Hell is going to be having a party at my funeral. They're going to be glad I'm out of the way. Of course, I won't care then. You ought to live a life to where there's a spontaneous cheer when you die from Satan and his angels that you're finally out of their way. Fortunately, there's a lot of people that hell's pretty sad when they die because they were quite the tool to be used in this world. There ought to be a party in hell when you're finally out of the way, out of the picture. That's the life you ought to live. And it starts with worship. Not lip service. Not anything fake, but worship. Placing a true value on God. Let's pray. Precious Heavenly Father, I hope that in some way we get a deeper understanding and deeper concept of valuing you. Truly valuing you. We live soft lives. And I don't know that we truly understand what great value and freedom we have to even be able to get here today and worship you. To truly worship you. And Satan or evil are not offended and upset by just people getting together, by social clubs, by social gatherings. But boy, I think Satan and evil would be offended if you were truly, truly being worshipped, valued, obeyed, submitted to, praised. And I hope that our land, whatever it takes, can get back to an understanding of proper value for you and the proper value for worship. I pray that you help us have a good week. I pray that our lives every day will be a testimony to you, a sacrifice to you, to show the value that we have for you, not for money, not for ourselves, not for fun, but that we can in some way show our value for you every day. In Jesus' name, amen. 401. All 4 verses.